Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and we're going to talk about the Mork Borg Bare Bones edition that just came out. And we're going to talk about purpose, meaning, and nature being hidden, and how easy it is to hide the purpose, meaning, and nature of a thing, and how little people see when they look at a thing. All right, okay, so let's go forward. So first of all, I got a little bit of good news for you. The Mork Borg Bare Bones edition is absolutely free. You can get it for nothing. The link is below. And I got this. Actually, Teo Sabadia is a main source for me right now. He's the author of Acquisitions Incorporated, which is an official Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition source book. That means a lot to me. Like, if you wrote an actual D&D 5e book, you're really one of the top people on the planet, in my opinion, because that ain't an easy task. You've got to work hard, and they don't take scrubs on the D&D design team, right? They just, you got to be delivering. And Teo Sabadia he's a brilliant deliverer, right? He works hard, and he actually makes good content, and I think he's brilliant, and I think it's really important that he's a Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition writer, right? And I have a lot of respect for every Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition writer. I think it's hard. By the way, I have more respect for, of course, you have the central creator of Dungeons & Dragons in 1974. He's the first and foremost among designers and writers. But the reality is, beyond him, I actually have a lot more respect for writers on Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition than on every other edition previously. And the reason why is D&D 5e is world famous. Dungeons & Dragons today is world famous, right? In the 70s and 80s, it was coming up, and maybe you got your name on a book or something, but it really wasn't the same, right? Like, if you're attached to Dungeons & Dragons now, you're attached to multi-billion-dollar streaming shows. You're attached to, and not just one, right? Vox Machina, Amazon Prime Vox Machina. That's a D&D show if ever there was a D&D show. Stranger Things. That's a Dungeons & Dragons, a marinated Dungeons & Dragons show, right? If you're connected to Dungeons & Dragons, if you're actually connected to real Dungeons & Dragons today, you're connected pretty close to American celebrity, right? And that's just not the case. In the old days, you were a game designer. Who cared? Whatever, right? But now you're a hair's breadth from Hollywood if you're a Dungeons & Dragons actual real writer, right? And so it's harder, and because of that, people desperately want to get on Dungeons and Dragons. They want to get on their slate, right? And actually, just so you're aware, you become a Dungeons and Dragons, you're a D&D 5th edition writer. You can get on any TTRPG indie product you want, and frankly, I think you can waltz right up to the vast majority of publishers today and just be like, hey, here's my book, you want to publish it? And they're like, yep. In fact, I think that's exactly what James Introcaso is doing, and several others, right? Once you become a D&D official writer, you can just roll up on anything. So, all right, let me get back on target, sorry. So basically, let's talk about this Mork Borg Bare Bones edition. So I downloaded this thing. It's brilliant, right? Now, let me talk about Mork Borg. I'm going to give you my review of Mork Borg right here. I think Mork Borg is brilliant. So what is Mork Borg? Mork Borg is an incredibly stylized form of D&D Dark. Okay, Dungeons & Dragons Dark. So it's an indie title. It's an international title. That's important. If you ain't noticed, there is a major theme happening in America right now with and that theme is American tabletop role-playing games, which instantly get recognized generally if it's anywhere close to, D&D is always the number one game in the world as far as promotions and recognition and all that kind of thing. But the reality is, basically, there are a lot of famous American games, but the reality is international games are quickly catching up. Definitely in publishing quality, the art, if you look at a Modiphius book, right, the art and the layout is incredibly close to an American product. Now, the innovation is never close to an American product. Almost all international products are simply copying what we did in the 80s, 90s, 2000s, and 2010s. Right? I don't think there's any real innovation happening in the international scene. With that said, Mork Borg there is some exceptions, and Mork Borg is one of those exceptions. The theme on Mork Borg is incredible. So think indie, think D&D dark, right? But then what they did was they made a tabletop role-playing game that visually looked like a zine. All right, and I, if you watch Questing Beast, you'll know like zines are a huge thing right now, right? So zines are like, hey, people in the 80s and the 90s were so excited about Dungeons and Dragons that they made these zines, like, and that's short for magazine, right? And it was just like this little scrub content, like really like low quality content, but like very low quality content, but high quality passion, right? Like people were very passionate for what they were making, right? And so basically, zines were a thing. And so Mork Borg is a very high quality game with very simple, very light rules, okay? And but its theme is dark metal zine, right? And literally there's blood on the pages, and like there's devil horns everywhere, and like it's really, really dark. It's like a metal album if every page of a tabletop role-playing game were a metal album, right? And so it was brilliant. People loved it. It exploded onto the scene, right? Except for a few people, right? Like, and actually, I would say the split was about 60-40. I think about 60% of people who saw Mork Borg went, this is brilliant. And then the other 60% said, hey, I'm trying to play a role-playing game here. What the heck is this nonsense, right? And they were like, it's hard to get the information that I need to play this game from this book because the theme is so visually confusing, right? Now, Mork Borg was like, this is part of the theme, man. We're trying to get you into the narrative space of like a dark world where things are dangerous and you die frequently, and there's little hope, right? Like, and every page of the design is showing this, right? So Mork Borg went here, and they were like, hey, check out this dark themed book. But guess what? It didn't work for like 2/3 for 1/3 of the people who, like 1 out of 3, right? People who read Mork Borg were like, I don't get this, right? They're like, I can't make heads or tails of this book, right? And so only people who were excited about the visual theme and were like, I get where you're going, right? But 1/3 were just shunted away and didn't get it, right? And so they were like, hey, a lot of people encounter Mork Borg and were like, nope, do not want. And they're like, we worked too hard to lose these people, so let's create the Mork Borg basic, the Mork Borg bare bones edition. Now, the Mork Borg bare bones edition that you're going to get is literally white and black text, right? Now, it's organized very well, and there's a lot of quality in the book, but there's no art. It's literally, well, there's cover, there's a cover, right? And I think there might be a little bit of art, and maybe even you could consider like maps that are inside of it art as well. But the art has been way stripped down, and it's been made very simple, right? And the reason why was when people looked at this, they didn't understand the purpose, meaning, or nature of the game because they couldn't see it through the visual theme. All it took to hide right, the purpose, meaning, and nature of Mork Borg from literally 1/3 of all people, in my humble opinion, right, was just a visual theme. That's all it took to hide something. And my point here is, a lot of people don't look deep when they come to a game. They're like, this game's about cutting goblins in half. I'll never be changed by it. It has nothing to say about culture, politics, or religion, and I can't be changed or improved by it because I'm simple, right? Like I have simple intelligence, and I have simple vision, right? And I think there are a lot of and it doesn't just take low intelligence to miss the obvious, right? It actually takes a dedication to being unchanged, and there is a powerful dedication to being unchanged in specifically in the OSR. I really feel the OSR is a refuge for people who desire to not have the play engines they play, Dungeons and Dragons, OSC. Actually, I'm not sure OSC is a play engine. That is a game. But like, they don't want the time they spend doing tabletop role-playing game to change them. They want their hardened hearts and their desiccated mind and their petrified minds to remain unchanged. unchanged, right? And so they don't look deep, right? Like they specifically stop thinking when it comes to a tabletop role-playing game, and they put it in a box, right? And this is what I'm telling you, right? Look how easy it was for people to miss the purpose, meaning, and nature of Mork Borg. All it took were metal cover albums. That's all it took to completely hide what Mork Borg was to literally a third of the population, in my humble opinion, right? And this is what I'm saying, right? It's outrageously obvious. If you look at Dungeons and Dragons, right, this was never a game, in my humble opinion. It was always a human improvement engine. But people are so easily fooled, right? Like, and not even fooled, but they just can't see the forest for the trees, right? Like, and I really feel like Mork Borg is powerful. Mork Borg, bare bones edition, the need to say, if we do even anything remotely complicated, we'll lose a ton of people. Not because they're of small intelligence, really just small vision and a powerful desire to remain unchanged, right? And this is the thing, in my humble opinion, you can't even graze against Dungeons and Dragons and remain unchanged, right? Like, Dungeons and Dragons will change you. It will change how you spend your time. It will change how you think. It will change your language, right? And it's power, especially the version that carries Dungeons and Dragons' true legacy. Its legacy of progressiveness and inclusiveness. Its legacy of Lake Geneva, right? And that's always the now version of Dungeons and Dragons. So, Mork Borg, in my opinion, is strong evidence that that is incredibly easy to hide something from people, right? And so when the central creator in 1974 of Dungeons & Dragons hid, in my humble opinion, the fact that it was a game, it was super easy to do. And people blind themselves to it today and ignore mountains and continuing mounting of evidence, right? And and this is what makes me sad. It may never be possible to prove it to people because there's just evidence, but they're like, no, Scott, I refuse to improve myself. I refuse to open my heart and my mind. And this is why I keep going at the OSR, is I really feel like they have built this 4-star refuge for people who do not want to improve themselves and want to remain in their suck state. And I just don't like it. I don't like it. I apologize. I know I'm like really going, pedal down on this idea, but it's, all I have is my passion. It's just a part of me. So I appreciate your patience. I believe that Mork Borg's Barebone Edition is something you should get today, and I believe it's evidence that Dungeons & Dragons was never a game, as I believe, in my humble opinion, it was always a human improvement engine, and is to this day, in my humble opinion. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing. Have a wonderful millennium.